Ladies and gentlemen, it's the Gormon Productions Wrestling Podcast.
Welcome back, my friends, to the Gormon Productions Wrestling Podcast. Today, we're going to talk about babies. Now, the wrestling universe has produced a multitude of original greatness over the years. But sometimes, two or more wrestlers can inspire and birth very attractive and sometimes very ugly babies. Let's count them down. Go! In 2012, Goldberg and RVD announced the birth of their baby boy, Ryback. He had Goldberg's eyes, Rob's fashion sense, and he shell-shocked his way through dozens of 90-pound job guys every week. Now, just a few weeks ago, Ryback made the announcement that he was taking his ball and going home, even though he never really had the ball to begin with. But don't tell him I said that. I don't want to see what he's like when he's mad. It doesn't take a genius to calculate who Dolph Ziggler's legal guardians are. This mathematical equation consists of some slicked back billy gun hair, add in one or two famousers, and multiply it by 5,000 super kicks, and you have yourself the rudimentary solution to the Dolph Ziggler theory. The real question ultimately becomes, is he too similar to HBK and the Badass? Maybe, but I like him, so who cares? While the lunatic fringe is pacing back and forth in his cell, deep inside the Ambrose Asylum, he's listening to the voices in his head, primarily that of Stone Cold Steve Austin and the late Brian Pillman. When you fuse together the lunatic tendencies of the loose cannon with the mud-hole stomping brawler style of the Rattlesnake, you awaken the three-headed monster that has been dominating the squared circle both in the ring and on the mic. While Bray Wyatt is one of the most original characters in wrestling history, he still looms in the dark shadows of the incomparable Jake the Snake Roberts. When the Eater of World is on the mic, you listen. Rather than mumbling and grumbling while flexing his muscles, Bray takes on the sinister promo style of Jake Roberts, piercing through the TV screen with a far more meticulous and psychological approach to get into the heads of his opponents. This cult-like following of the Wyatt family reflects, and arguably overshines, that of the flock that surrounded Raven in WCW in the 90s. The recipe for success can sometimes come from pre-existing cookbooks. Take one large bowl, mix in the tag team precision, as well as the singlet style, of the Steiner brothers, then sift in the underrated excellence of Shelton Benjamin and Charlie Haas, mix well, and you have a superior duo that will continue to dominate the tag team division until they finally find themselves with gold around their waists. To sketch out the gravity-defying Adrian Neville, you must first start with the highly underutilized style of Evan Bourne, then incorporate the first-class acrobatics of Rey Mysterio, add in the comic book persona of Yushin Thunder Liger, and perhaps a few elf ears, and you have written yourself the soon-to-be success story of the man that gravity forgot. Let's just hope that McMahon hasn't forgotten him as well, because this guy has future champion written all over him. Any quality architect can map out the support beams that make up Titus ONeil. It's hard to ignore the similarities in the take-no-prisoner dominance of both Ron Simmons and Ahmed Johnson that ONeil displays in the ring. If you subtract a little bit of comedy and replace it with the intensity of Ken Shamrock, you have constructed a tower of a wrestler that could easily claim the US or Intercontinental title at a moment's notice. What makes up the Cesaro section? Well, let's start with the incomparable in-ring style of Kurt Angle, the untouchable strength of Lex Luger, the technical ability of Chris Benoit, and the smooth style of nearly every Four Horsemen member in history. Yet, even with the DNA of legends pumping through his veins, Cesaro is still very much an original and will one day be headlining every pay-per-view the network has to offer. It is very hard to compare anyone to Sting. It is equally difficult to compare anyone to Finn Balor, but when you place these careers side by side, it's impossible to ignore the similarities. Not unlike the multifarious Surfer, Crow, and Wolfpack varieties of Sting, Finn Balor has adapted and evolved his multiple personalities to best suit the style of match he wants to have. And not unlike Sting, you will see Balor rise above the rest, winning title after title, not to mention the title of the franchise, until the Demon joins the Scorpion in the Hall of Fame. Alright, true. It's hard to teach someone to be a certified G and a bona fide stud, but if you can certainly inherit the hysterical smack-talking of a young Lionheart Chris Jericho, the mic-dropping, audience-compelling style of CM Punk, and not to mention the bold, colorful, ever-changing, gloriously inconsistent fashion that mirrors Jeff Hardy. He also reminds me a lot of Chester Cheetah, and you definitely can't teach that. All right, my friends, thank you so much for tuning in and playing along. Check us out on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Hit some like buttons, leave some comments, and I will talk to you soon.